Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another discussion topic video to share with you guys. This video is going to be about the different tiers of folding knives and why certain costs are associated with certain types of knives. One of the most common misunderstandings and just the most common questions that I get on this channel is, how could that knife possibly be worth that much money when I can get blah, 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 blah for so much less and it's the same materials? That's a fair question, this video is going to be directed mostly towards new people who are confused by this. I feel like the majority of my viewers who come back and watch my content all the time, you guys probably know this. You guys know how this works, the different classifications of different tiers of knives, right? So this is to help people understand. I want to cater towards new people so that, the knife world is not so confusing. I remember being super new and like, what the heck? Why is this? And, there is actually a lot more structure to pricing, I think, than people understand. Now, keep in mind, this video is not intended to justify the value of any individual knife. It is to explain why a knife costs more than a previous tier. So, if somebody if you're feeling compelled to say there's no way the Hinderer could possibly be worth blah blah blah, that's not what the video is about. You're missing the point if you're starting to type up that comment. We're going to talk about what goes into each one of these knives and why. There are a lot of factors. It is going to be a ramble, though, so make a sandwich, get something to drink, buckle up. It's going to be a long one. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me during this time. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, get your hands on some of those stickers, there's a link down in the description. You'll also gain access to some exclusive content. The support would absolutely mean the world to me. So I have these laid out in a certain way. And by the way, we're going to leave full custom knives out of this. For anybody who doesn't know what a full custom knife is, by my definition of a full custom knife is a knife that is absolutely 100% handmade. Each individual custom knife maker will have more or less experience using, more or less exotic materials, and there'll be more or less processes, right? How much time and effort goes into the knife and what they feel it's worth at the end, right? It's so up and down. Custom knives range all over the place, right? So we're going to leave that out. We're actually going to be talking about your low end, your mid range, your high end production, your ultra high end production, Midtech, Midtechs, and then your semi-custom knives or your ultra high-end Midtechs. And we're going to explain the difference between all that stuff. I've got two other guys up here that I'm going to talk about that really make things extra confusing for new people. Let's start off with the top left. This is what we in the knife community call a gas station knife. If you hear that term, there is a specific theme going on here. It is fantasy. The design makes no sense. It's designed to just draw in somebody who's like, oh wow, the two blade. This is a junker knife. I understand, some people who are super new, they look at this and think, wow, that's super cool. This is, it's not made out of anything remotely close to, what would consider to be a material geared towards utility. This is stamped and pressed, comes off an assembly line in China. They don't care about it. There's nothing in the way of tolerances. It is manufactured in, in a way that is, the emphasis is on the quantity and not the quality. The materials that go into it, they will do everything they can to cut costs on that thing and make it look as attractive as possible. The markup on something like this, despite it being one of the least expensive types of knives out there, generally the markup by percentage is ridiculous. The amount of money it costs to manufacture that versus what you pay for it, those companies oftentimes make a killing because it costs nothing to make this. It's manufactured in China, where this is a big part of it, guys. Manufacturing in China costs less. And I understand that sounds condescending, but you guys, you'd be surprised how many times I have to explain this. Again, most of you guys know this, but just so people understand, it costs less to manufacture things in China. That's a huge part of this. Next up, this is more of a knife, but still, just a hair above that. This is the design is more so one that is meant to fit your hand. The blade is more so made in a way that's designed to actually cut things, but it is still basically manufactured with the same idea here. Just make as many as you can, make it look, make it look like it's really tough, make it look like it's really tactile, because that appeals to people, but try to save as much money as possible. Don't use anything crazy for the handle materials or the blade material, right? Let's just save money, make a bunch, and make as much money as we can. That's the idea there. Quantity. The first tier that I think is a quality tier is the budget Chinese production knives that are actually manufactured with tolerances. Now, for a lot of people, it's like, well, how do you know? How can you tell? A lot of times it's just handling. For example, the difference between this, the Smith & Wesson Extreme Ops Black Tanto, which is oftentimes priced at about 20 bucks, and the CJRB Crag, using a combination of fairly inexpensive carbon fiber, and then you've got steel liners, you've got a D2 steel blade, it's running on bearings, but this is the difference between tolerances on a knife, it shows obviously that the manufacturer cared. The blade profile is ground well. There are, things like the tumbled finish, which is an extra process. Basically the scales and liners, everything meets up. The handle design is one that absolutely is made for the human hand. There's a lot of little telltale things, but again, this is manufactured in China. And while the idea is, make a lot of them, make them better, make them usable, make them a knife that's going to last, right? Let's listen to the knife community, find out what it is that they're looking for. I mean, people's feelings are going to be one way or another. Oh, by the way, this video is also not about China versus America. So if you're starting to leave a comment like that, you're missing the point. That's not what this is about. This is about explaining why some knives cost more than others. So I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to remove it if it comes in the comment section. Yeah, this is a knife that is it's made in a way where they want the tool to represent what the company is all about, their quality, right? At the same time, it costs so much less to manufacture. It's not just the materials. Carbon fiber does not have a static value to it, right? Carbon fiber can be processed in many different ways. Let's look at this, the ZT0777. Both of these are carbon fiber. That does not mean they cost the same money or that the carbon fiber on each one of these should be worth the same amount of money. This is much more heavily processed and contoured than this. This is just a flat piece of carbon fiber. So you can't look at a knife and go, well, this is carbon fiber and that's carbon fiber. Why does that one cost hundreds of dollars more? That is not how that works. That's not. And again, I know that sounds condescending and ridiculous to a lot of you guys, but most of you guys know this. This is to help explain to newer people. That is, you can't look at it like that. It costs money to process materials, and depending on where the material is being processed, right, how manual the process is, it gets more and more and more expensive. So that carbon fiber costs less than that carbon fiber. This is manufactured in China, right? Kind of in the same area, Civivi knives, right? I think a step up in quality. You can see there, we've got a little bit more chamfering, a little bit more contouring of the handle, right? In my opinion, I think, Civivi knives just feel a little bit more solid than CJRB, but they cost about 20 bucks more. Again, the same idea there. Use inexpensive materials. Let's make sure that they are put together in a quality way. Let's make a lot of them, right? But let's make sure that the people who are buying these are getting a quality product at a good price. Moving on to the lower end of I guess the nicer American production knives. This is the Kershaw bare knuckle. Perhaps the point of diminishing returns in U.S. production knives. This is a U.S.-made knife in CPM 20 CV and hard coat anodized aluminum. This knife is roughly a $78 knife. I'll try to include links for a lot of this stuff down in the description. $78 knife. Now, this knife is manufactured in the United States, right? So it's real easy to look at these two. A lot of people will go, okay, I can completely understand why this one costs more than this one. It's because this one's D2 and this one's 20 CV. Not so much, actually. The 20 CV blade is going to cost more than a D2 blade, And then some people might think aluminum's better than G10, or I'm sorry, aluminum's better than G10, G10's better than aluminum. It's where the item is manufactured and how much it takes to process that material and get it, you know, from basically the material to the completed knife. How much does that process cost? And then they have to figure out, how can we sell this? How can we market it and sell it to people and actually make money on it, right? I mean, if they mark this thing up to 120 bucks, they probably would sell a lot less, unless they, you know, unless the marketing was so good and created such amazing demand for it, right? But that's not usually the case. People, it's very, the first thing that people want to lean on is the company must be greedy. That's why it's expensive, because the company's greedy. While in some situations that might be partially true, it's much less true than people want to think. A lot of time, I mean, like, and I get it, right? Looking at an expensive knife that you can't afford, right? This is what used to go through my head. God dang it, why is that so expensive? I want that. Why is it so expensive? I can't afford that. That company's greedy. They're greedy. It's not because most of the time, I mean, sometimes, you know, that is the case, but guys, come on. I mean, I've been there. I get it. It's just easier to think they must be greedy. I can't have that because they're being jerks, right? Not usually the case. I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but it's not usually the case. In the case of the bare knuckle versus the Civivi, number one, this is manufactured in the United States. It costs more to make this money, or it costs more to make this knife, right? Now, given that this is 20 CV running on bearings, has Kershaw's fit and finish, truthfully, I don't think they could possibly be making much money on this at $78. I think it was almost possibly Smoky Mountain Knife Works setting out to just be the one to just so they could say like, hey, we have, you know, the greatest value knife that you could possibly, you know, imagine. And to a lot of people, that is right there. There's the Kershaw bare knuckle in 20 CV through Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Yeah, you're hard pressed to find a better value American-made production knife than that. If all you care about is utilitarian function and having the best materials in terms of utility, dollar for dollar, and that's where you put your value. Because a lot of this has to do with an individual value system. What do you consider of value? Where do you put that idea of value on your knife, right? Is it just the materials? You don't care what form it takes, right? You just care that it has a blade, it folds, and is made out of M390 and titanium, and that is worth X amount. Some people think like that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to think like that, to block out everything else that the manufacturer or the maker is putting into the item, because each individual item will have more or less work and care and passion in it, right? We can't say that that's not worth money. I mean, if you want to open a business and you want to create something and sell it to people, right? And people come up and they're like, you know, all I see here is just titanium and this. I could care less about, you know, what form it took and how much effort you put into it. It's just this material and this material. And I think that this material and this material are worth just this much. That's bullcrap. That's bullcrap. You cannot come at it like that. That is not how this works. If every single, you know, company in the United States, and I'm from the United States, so this is, you know, I'm going to use this example. If everybody thought it should only cost this much because I see other things out there costing this much, I don't care that they're manufactured in countries where, you know, it costs less to make the item, right? It should cost that much because I've seen it that way. If all manufacturing was done here and then all of the, you know, the businesses that sold the items, you know, reduced the prices to that amount, they couldn't make money. There would be no room for any business to grow. So you have to understand that there has to be room, considering how much it costs to make this knife in the United States, you know, and then market it and then, you know, put it in front of people and then sell enough of them to where that profit margin is actually bringing in money, right? I mean, that actually, and guys, I'm not an expert on this. Like, I mean, those of you who are still here after 14 minutes who are like, this guy's really rambly, but I'm going to stay and find out where this goes, right? I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just, what I'm trying to do here is help people understand why something costs more, and to not just reduce it to this simple idea of this static, like G10 is worth this, you know, 20 CV is worth this, aluminum's worth this. That's not how that works. Vehicles, for the most part, are made out of a combination of aluminum, steel, and sometimes carbon fiber. But it costs a lot more money to make some cars than other, regardless of what material is on it. It's what form it takes, right? That's a lot of times the case. Now, in other products, right, it's not always the exact same idea. There are certainly products out there that, cost more money simply because the demand is so high for them. It doesn't take place nearly as often in the folding knife world. It's not the same. And I think that might be where a lot of the confusion comes from. Did I tell you this was going to be rambly? It is. So anyways, Kershaw Bare Knuckle coming in, and 20CV coming in at about $78 right now. And the Civivi Praxis, manufactured in China, and D2 and G10 coming in at about $55. That's pretty normal for this guy. It's very abnormal for this guy. I normally, just months ago, somebody explained this to me, I would have said that's probably a $100 knife, at least, right? Same thing here. U.S. production knife, probably a little more went into this, but it's G10. It doesn't matter that it's G10. This is a contour G10 handle that's got a very interesting pattern on it. It certainly would take more effort to make this. A lot of the materials, or a lot of the, just the stuff on it, the pocket clip. In my opinion, that pocket clip probably took a little bit more to make than the one on the Kershaw, right? There's a little bit more hardware. Not that that's really adding a whole lot here. I think the blade was done a little bit nicer. I think the studs on this are a little bit nicer. And a lot of times, with the appearance of things, it's not necessarily a direct indicator that it costs more money. But, just looking at these two knives, right? This is 20 CV in aluminum running on bearings, and this is G10 a steel cartridge liner, and M390 running on phosphor bronze, and your axis lock. This is a $155 knife made in the United States. This is a $78 knife. A lot of people are going to go, well, that one seems like, the better deal, right? Yeah, in terms of a tool, it probably is. But I'd be lying if I said this one didn't feel higher quality. It does. Oftentimes, the additional processes it costs more money, so they charge more money, right? Here's where it really gets confusing. This is where most people get super bent out of shape. How many times have you guys, let's pretend, so this is my Hinderer, and this is a Wii Hekate. Now, I like Wii knives, by the way, just reminding everybody, this is not US versus China. I like Wii knives. I just like knives. If they come from here, they come from there. As long as they're not clones or people aren't cheating other people, right, into making them believe it's something that if you're somebody who creates fake Praetorian ties and you sell them and pretend that they are real Praetorian ties from Medford, then you're a terrible person, plain and simple. That's awful. And if you're buying those things, right, and you don't care that they're clones, what are you doing? Don't do that. Jeez. But anyways, the Wii Hekate. Titanium. Sculpted titanium. CPM 20 CV. Running on bearings. This is a $260 knife, right? Great deal. I mean, right? Titanium, 20 CV. Manufactured in China. Manufactured in China. Manufactured very, very well. Way better than this. Civivi is a subsidiary of Wii Knives. Way better. Very, very good, ultra high-end production manufacturing. The tolerances are amazing, right? That's great. Zero tolerance. In this case, we have the RJ Martin, I always forget the number, 0609. 20 CV. Titanium. Sculpted titanium. In this case, anodized titanium with a special pivot. Running on bearings. What do these cost? About the same. Now, most of the time, the reason I'm pointing this out is this is where it gets really confusing. Most of the time, what I hear is, how can something in this tier up here, which we're going to talk about, ultra high-end production / mid-tech / semi-custom, cost 2, 3, 4 times more than something like this? I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on this example right here, the ZT versus the Wii. The ZT is manufactured in the United States. To me, in this case, the ZT is actually a little bit more impressive. Wii has been on the rise here lately. They've been making knives that have incredible designs, beautiful sculpted titanium scales, sometimes with inlays using the ultra, the incredible high-end blade steels, blah, blah, blah. Now, if you remember back when we first hit the scene, their prices for some of the same types of builds were actually substantially less. 170, 180 bucks. Don't believe me? Go back and watch some of the older reviews from back when they had the Star. Remember the Star hardware that people complain about? And then they got popular and then their prices went up. Nobody's in this for charity, right? Zero Tolerance struggling to kind of stay above the surface right now. They can't do anything about what it costs to manufacture their knives, right? So they're doing the sculpted titanium thing. They're doing the 20 CV thing, you know, and they're creating knives that are just as beautiful, just as functional, and they're charging the same price in a lot of cases, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. But that's a little bit more impressive to me right now that they're doing that. And I want people to understand, you know, there's actually probably more of a markup on something like this than something like this right now. You know, it goes up and down based on demand. It doesn't matter who the company is, right? So then we get up to Microtech. Now Microtech has got, you know, they're a little bit more popular than ZT right now. So is that why their knives cost more money? Maybe a little bit, but not as much as you guys think, actually. Because again, they have to deal with what it costs to manufacture their knives. That's just aluminum. That's just, you know, it's just 20 CV. Well, to me, there's a little more complexity that goes into this blade than on the ZT. And honestly, I think there's a little more complexity that goes into the aluminum. Yeah, it's just aluminum, right? But we've got a sub frame lock here that is titanium. These are in-house screws. Some of ZT's hardware is probably made in-house, but I'm going to guess some of it isn't. I'm going to guess the final item and a lot of the shaping of the titanium and the grinding of the blades, it's all from the US. But some of the hardware is just typical hardware that you can get anywhere. It's probably manufactured in China, and then it's probably assembled, and, you know, the design is built around making sure everything fits together. Now, I'm not saying ZT knives are partially Chinese made. No, I'm saying that sometimes common fasteners and things, those are, you know, outsourced to save a little bit of money so that they can, you know, remain a contender in this world where these Chinese production knife companies are just coming in hot, and it's confusing to people, right? People are like, wow, this is such a great deal, right? All these American companies are so greedy. Look at these, you know, that's, I mean, a lot of what is happening here. And again, feel free, you can fill in the blanks here where I'm wrong or don't have all of the information. But again, this is just, we're trying to stair-step explain why some things might cost more money. In-house, hardware, the design is, it's not a modular clip that is just made to fit that are stamped and pressed, made to fit a bunch of different models. Not that necessarily is. This is a great knife, by the way, and so is the Wii. But yeah, the Microtech SOCOM Elite, everything on it is specifically made for it. It's probably all done in-house, right, at Microtech. Now, this is a $280-ish knife. Do I think it's worth the money? I mean, I can see how they got there, but again, individual ideas of value, right? Do you value all that stuff that I'm talking about? If you don't, and you're just looking at it as a lump of materials, then yeah, then just go buy whatever you feel is the most cost-efficient thing that's manufactured in whatever country, right? That doesn't make you right or smarter than everybody else. That's just where you put the value in your knives, right? The Hinderer, this is actually the knife that caused the issue. Now, this is an expensive knife. I get why a lot of people don't understand, you know. The Hinderer 0562, the ZT, only costs $200 and, what was it? The CF is $260, the tie is $280. And the Hinderer XM18 is titanium and G10 and M390, and it's running on bearings. Why does it cost $425? Because more goes into it. Will you get more utility out of the Hinderer XM18? I don't know. I mean, you know, for the vast majority of us, no. They're both going to cut. They're both going to go in your pocket, right? If that's where your value system is, then no, you're not going to see the difference. Does the Hinderer cost more money to make? Yes, quite a bit. Everything on a Hinderer. By the way, this is an XM24, so this costs a lot more money than an XM18. But pretending that it's an XM18, right? I know for a fact every single piece of hardware on the Hinderer knives, on Hinderer knives in general, are made in-house, right? I also know that they are hand-checked, hand-tuned, hand-assembled, every single one of them. Do those things collectively cost more than machine creating a ZT0562 and not hand checking it, right? So you guys know those are made by machine. They are put together by machine. They're made in the United States, and it costs a little more money to do it than in China. But like the Wii knives, no, they're not hand checked. Hinderers are. Costs more money to do that. It's more human time, human effort. Time equals money, right? And then also the shaping of things. You know, yeah, this is a piece of carbon fiber. But again, it's not a static, carbon fiber doesn't have a static value. This, some people might look at this and go, ooh, it's shiny, I like that better. It doesn't change the fact that this costs more money to create in this way than this, right? And some people are going to jump on me and go, it couldn't possibly cost that much more. It should only cost, you know, $46.92. I disagree. It should cost $61.47. You know, you're missing the point. It costs more to make that piece of carbon fiber than this one. You know, it costs more to create a titanium frame that is accepting of all in-house custom hardware, right? Everything is done. Everything is laser measured in-house. They create the hardware, they fit the hardware, they hand tune it, hand assemble it, they get the action exactly right. And on top of that, this has a tri-way pivot system that is specific to Hinderer knives. It was created by Hinderer knives. He had to create the modular system and make sure, he has to constantly make sure that his machines are calibrated so that all of the tri-way hardware fits the models it's supposed to fit. And if there's any sort of, difference between one tri-way system and another for a different model or a fitment thing, right? You guys know that there are different sizes for the standoffs between different Hinderer models. There's different sizes for the screws, the pivots, right? A lot of the hardware is modular. A lot of it isn't. So he's got machines that have to perfectly measure and shape these things for all of these different models, making sure they all fit. And then he's got people who hand check these things and assemble them and make sure that they are fitting exactly the way. Yeah, that costs more money. You might not like it. You might not want to pay that much. You might go, well, I don't think it should cost that. You probably don't make the knives, right? I don't do it either. I'm not saying I know and you don't know, and that's a, and I'm getting super heated about this. I'm just remembering the back and forth of the argument and how often, you guys, I see this so often. The fact remains, whether or not you think it should cost exactly that much more. Hinder's it probably does cost more, but it's probably like he's probably making a killing on each one, and I don't think he should make that much. A lot of the argument comes from this simple argument: I want it, I can't afford it, it makes me frustrated. He must be the bad guy, or Tony Marfione must be the bad guy. Greg Medford must be the bad guy, right? Yeah, it's not the case. They're expensive because they cost more money to make, right? I don't know what they're making on each individual one, but I can tell you it costs way more. And they got to keep those machines maintained, right? The bits, whatever, if they cut it with water jet, if they, shape things or they mill things out, the bits, the machines that shape these materials, they wear down, right? They cost money to maintain. So all of that has to be paid for. It's not like they just have this machine that goes, and then there's a knife, no cost. No, it doesn't work like that. And I sound like I'm patronizing a whole bunch of people. I'm making it sound like people are so unintelligent. And I know, no, I'm really not trying to do that. I'm really not. I'm trying to help people understand that why things cost more money. Moving on. Semi-custom or Midtech, in this case, Microtech Combat Truidon Hellhound, the hand ground blade. Yeah, you bet. Is this expensive at $600, right? XM24, by the way. This is about a $600 knife. Yeah, but same thing. It costs more money to do that. It's not something that somebody just takes a piece, it's like, oh, I got a piece of 20 CV. Yeah, looks good. That's not what it takes to hand grind a Hellhound blade, right? There's so many processes that go into it. Not only do you have to make sure that it is heat treated properly and that it is ground correctly, but then you're doing it by hand. It does take an enormous amount of effort. Then you have to make sure that the blade fits with the chassis and all the little parts and things. And these are in-house screws. But I don't like those screws because they don't let me into the knife. Well, it doesn't matter. It still costs money to make them. But it's just aluminum. Again, everything. It's not the material. It's how much it costs to shape that material and how much it costs to take the individual materials and put them all together in a super high quality, tight fitting item that functions exactly the way it was intended to function, right? Super expensive knife. Semi-custom. This is a Rockstead Higo 2, manufactured in Japan. Carbon fiber, titanium, mirror polished ZDP 189. $1,500. Now, what a lot of people heard, despite me going into extreme detail and putting all this effort into this video and explaining why things cost more money, a lot of people just heard me say this. Titanium, carbon fiber, ZDP 189, $1,500. And so, and a lot of people's initial instinct is to go, that can't possibly be worth that much. You can get this knife in titanium, carbon fiber, and ZDP for bleh. I can guarantee you whatever bleh was, there wasn't nearly as much effort put into it as this. Getting that blade to be mirror polished. I mean, if you don't care that it's mirror polished and you're not into that, then yeah, this knife's not gonna be worth it to you, right? But and again, the point of this video is not to justify the value of specifically a Hinderer XM18. It's not to justify dollar for dollar. Is the $600 they want for a Hinderer XM24, is it justified? Or the $425 they want for an XM18, is it justified? No, that's not the point here. I know that the arguments are going to come. I know that they're unavoidable, but it's not the point. It's, does this cost more to make than this or this? Do these cost more to make than this? Do these cost more to make than this? Why? That's the point of the video. So, yeah. Does this knife cost a lot more to make, even if it's manufactured in Japan? Honestly, I don't know anything about Japan's manufacturing cost, but I can tell you this. A lot more human attention went into this guy than anything else on the table. Is it worth $1,500? I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely going to cost more money. Absolutely. A lot of their buyer market is from America. They got to ship it here, right? They got to insure it. They got to, I mean, all their stuff is in-house, you know. They've got these perfectly shaped carbon fiber scales and these polished titanium liners, right? Fitting, tolerances and everything, lock geometry. They've got everything else to consider, but just a lot more of a handmade element. Now, does demand for the item play a role? Yes, it does. Here's two items that will surely throw people for a loop. This is a long discontinued and very rare version of the ZT-0777. It is a US production knife, but it is a production knife. It's a special version of the knife, and it has high demand, and it's no longer available. So what people will pay for this, regardless of what it took to create it and where it was created, is it now has more elements to it. Same with the Sleesh Bowie. The Sleesh Bowie can't be worth $400, $500, $600, right? I mean, whatever these go for in the secondary market now. Yeah, when they were brand new, they didn't, because Taichung, Taiwan, great, known for, fantastic high quality manufacturing. Titanium, CTS XHP, wire clip. If you're reducing the value of the knife just to that, yeah, it's not a $400, $500 knife, whatever they go for. But do people pay that for it? Yes, because the demand on it is super high and you can't get it anymore. So demand does play a role in that. And sometimes it's the secondary market that does that. And sometimes a maker will get a big head, right? Or sometimes they just become legendary. Their time becomes more valuable. That's just, it's not them who creates that demand. It's actually us. It's we as the buyers who create that demand. And some people are going to want it and some people aren't. Some people are going to see value and stuff like that. It's going to happen sometimes. But in a lot of cases, an item is worth whatever people are willing to pay for it. But that is not the case here in this your low end to high end production world. That's not what's happening here. I mean, there's fluctuations in markup and things like that, but so much of it is based on how much it costs to make, based on what form it is taking and where this manufacturing and or hand process is taking place. So to conclude this video, this sounds, this whole thing has been this big, it sounds like this big salty rant, but I need this video to be here so that I can post links and direct people, because I know that I will keep getting this argument on my channel. And now I have this big long rant and I can go, you know what? Just hang on a sec. I've got a video on this. Let's talk about it. You might not like that this knife costs so much more than this knife. It is titanium and carbon fiber and M390. This one's full titanium and 20 CV, and it costs, a third the price or whatever, or it's substantially less than half the price, right? You might not like it, but the fact remains that this costs more to make than this. It just does. So you're not going to get this for this price. No matter how much you whine and complain, it's just not going to happen because Rick Hinderer could not support his business with prices like that. It's like that across the board. They can't do it, right? And it's not a charity. They're not just like, let's make these as inexpensive as possible and make $1 on each one and just, no, they're a business. They're trying, I mean, like, yeah, they want to create a great product, right? They want to put good knives, good high quality knives into the hands of people who want a high quality knife and at the same time want to support an American company, right? But they also want their business to grow. So, I mean, can you fault them for that? No, it's much easier to go, they must be greedy because I can't buy it right now, or I don't want to. Maybe I can afford it and I don't want to pay for it. That doesn't make them greedy, right? So, I don't know. Possibly a lot of the things that I said in this video were a little, more or less correct, because of my lack of knowledge in this. I mean, I don't make knives, I don't manufacture knives, but to me, just going through all this stuff and having handled as many knives as I have and having done this for so long, I love knives of all price ranges. I'm a knife snob, but there are $20 knives out there that I like. There are $1,500 knives. I mean, geez, there's $10,000 knives that I like now that I could afford it, right? I regularly buy knives anywhere from, about $35 all the way up to about $800 or $900. If there's something that I find interesting that I like for one reason or another, and I see value in it, then I will pay for it, right? But I've seen so much of this stuff and handled so much of this stuff that a lot of the value system is very, very apparent to me. And I wanted to share this, guys, with you, even if it came in the form of a very salty, long rant. I hope that this information fell on ears who consider it valuable information. I hope that I've shed light on this for some people. I'm sorry if I stirred up some arguments or bothered some people or whatever. That's just going to happen. But that's I gotta stop this because we're going on 37 minutes now. If you guys found this video entertaining or informative in any way, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.